There is an ancient symbol that was never feared for invoking external forces, but for reminding humanity of something far more dangerous. The human capacity for the pentagram traveled through civilizations teaching balance, awareness, and personal responsibility, until it began to disturb structures that rely on automatic obedience. When a symbol returns power inward, it stops being neutral. It becomes a threat. Most people grow up learning what to avoid, what to believe, and whom to obey, but rarely learn how to observe their own mind, emotions, and choices. The pentagram does not point outward. It points inward. It functions as a silent map that reveals who is truly in command of your life. And perhaps that is exactly why it has been distorted, ridiculed, and demonized over time. There is no shallow mysticism here, no easy promises. What exists is deep understanding. To understand this symbol is to understand how consciousness, action, and foundation organize themselves or fall into conflict within you. And once this map becomes clear, a question arises that no one else can answer for you. Who, after all, is governing your life today? The true historical origin before fear. Before becoming a source of suspicion, the pentagram moved naturally among the most advanced civilizations in history. In Mesopotamia, for example, it appeared engraved on clay tablets as a symbol connected to world order and the organization of reality. There was no dark mystery there. Quite the opposite. It functioned as a visual reminder that life followed patterns, much like the moment someone today realizes there is logic behind what once seemed chaotic. In ancient Greece, the pentagram gained even greater refinement. Philosophers devoted to mathematics and the observation of nature saw it as a kind of signature of universal harmony. It represented perfect proportion, that feeling that everything is in its proper place. The same feeling people experience today when they organize their routine, balance, work, and rest, and suddenly life begins to flow more smoothly. In Egypt, the interpretation was cosmological. The pentagram was associated with the movement of the stars and the balance between heaven and earth. There was no fear, no taboo. It was practical, applied knowledge, almost pedagogical. Just as people today study sleep cycles, nutrition, or mental focus to live better, the symbol once helped humanity understand natural rhythms and laws. And once this is understood, a quiet question emerges. If it was born to explain order, when did it begin to cause discomfort? The pentagram as a map of the human being. When someone observes the pentagram calmly, without haste or prejudice, something curious becomes apparent. It closely resembles a human body with arms outstretched. The upper point suggests the head consciousness, the ability to reflect before acting. Ancient traditions were not mistaken in viewing the mind as the command center. Long before modern discussions of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, the symbol already suggested that everything begins with how one thinks and interprets the world. The arms of the pentagram represent action and choice. They reach, build, repel, and embrace. In everyday life, this is easy to see. Two people may have the same information, yet act in completely different ways. One applies it, the other ignores it. The symbol suggests exactly that understanding alone is not enough. One must choose what to do with understanding. The legs speak of grounding and movement. They represent stability, progress, and balance, even on unstable terrain. In real life, this translates into routine, discipline, and consistency. Sleeping better, caring for the body, honoring simple commitments. The pentagram stops being an abstract drawing and becomes a mirror. Mind, action, and foundation moving together. And once this integration becomes clear, another layer naturally emerges, the forces that sustain this symbolic body from within. The 5 elements. When the pentagram is seen as a living organism, ancient traditions associated it with the 5 fundamental elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether were not viewed as distant mystical concepts, but as forces present in daily life. Earth represents the body and structure. Water reflects emotion, adaptability, and sensitivity. Anyone paying attention can see that neglecting either quickly disrupts balance. Fire appears as energy, drive, and the will to act. The force that gets someone out of the chair to change what feels wrong. Air represents thought, communication, and clarity. In practice, This comes down to knowing why you do what you do. People full of energy without clarity burn out. People full of ideas without action become frustrated. The pentagram shows that the elements do not compete. They cooperate, as long as someone is guiding them. Then comes the fifth element. Ether, often called spirit. It is not one more element, but the invisible center that governs the others. It is consciousness itself, observing, deciding, directing. In real life, this appears when someone pauses, reflects, and consciously chooses habits, information, and relationships. When this becomes clear, an unsettling question arises. What happens when this order is reversed? Upright versus inverted pentagram, the most distorted point. At some point in history, the pentagram was reduced to a simplistic opposition. Upright became good, inverted became evil. This is where its association with Satanism and threatening external forces emerged. The problem is that ancient symbols were never meant to function as moral labels. Upright, the top point, represents consciousness guiding body, emotions, and impulses. The image of someone who thinks before acting. The inverted pentagram, despite being adopted by modern groups for provocation, was never meant to represent demons or external entities. It speaks of internal hierarchy. Here, immediate desires, impulses, and automatic reactions take control. In everyday life, this shows up as impulsive choices, overstimulation, and lack of direction. This is not moral condemnation. It is psychological reading. The link to Satanism appears much later, as a strategy of shock and symbolic rupture. The symbol itself never changed. The pentagram does not point to good or evil, but to who governs one's life. Consciousness above matter, or matter above consciousness. That question is uncomfortable because it returns responsibility to the individual, and not every system is comfortable with that. Use in respected traditions. Long before demonization, the pentagram was respected in highly sophisticated schools of thought. Among the Pythagoreans, it symbolized health, harmony, and internal balance. It was not decoration, but a daily reminder of an ordered life. They believed that when thought, action, and purpose align, the body responds and the mind becomes clearer. Something modern science is only now In early Christianity, the symbol also had a place. The pentagram was associated with the 5 wounds of Christ, representing conscious sacrifice, integrity, and purposeful devotion. There was no fear, no prohibition. It symbolized responsibility and coherence between belief and action, a principle that remains deeply relevant today. In alchemy and ancient medicine, the pentagram represented the healthy human being, integrated and in harmony with nature. Physicians treated not only the body, but the mind and way of life. What sounds modern today was common practice centuries ago. The symbol crossed cultures as a tool of understanding, not fear, until autonomy itself became inconvenient. The moment of historical inversion. From the late Middle Ages onward, the perception of the pentagram changed dramatically. Symbols stopped being tools of understanding and became instruments of narrative control. Anything that encouraged personal interpretation and autonomy began to cause discomfort. Knowledge that was once shared became centralized. The fewer people think independently, the easier collective behavior becomes to manage. Control was not only religious, but symbolic. By redefining symbols, emotional responses were also redefined. A symbol of integration became associated with danger. Fear paralyzes curiosity and blocks inquiry. The same mechanism that still causes people to reject entire subjects without ever studying them. The symbol itself did not change. What changed was the story surrounding it. Anything that reminded individuals of their capacity to think, choose, and take responsibility became a threat. And when a symbol is forbidden, something deeper happens. People begin to doubt their own autonomy. That is where the pentagram gains yet another layer of meaning. The pentagram as a symbol of autonomy. When fear is removed and the pentagram is observed with maturity, its essence becomes clear. Autonomy. The symbol points to self-governance, the ability to direct one's life consciously, without intermediaries or external permission. Like someone who stops blaming the world and takes responsibility for habits, finances, and emotions. This posture strengthens the individual and unsettles systems built on dependence. Internal integration is the core of this autonomy. Thinking one thing, feeling another, and acting differently creates inner conflict. The pentagram suggests alignment, clear thought, acknowledged emotion, and coherent action. In practice, this begins with simple choices. What information you consume, what conversations you entertain, what books you read. Small choices build strong self-governance. Personal responsibility becomes the natural consequence, not as burden, but as mature freedom. When someone governs themselves, they stop searching for external saviors. That is why symbols of integration have never been welcome in control-based structures. And this understanding leads to one final curiosity. If the pentagram speaks so clearly of autonomy, why has interest in it returned now? Why it has returned so strongly today? The renewed interest in the pentagram is no coincidence. It emerges during a collective identity crisis, when many no longer know who they are, what they believe, or where they are going. Old answers no longer work, and new ones feel shallow. In this landscape, ancient symbols return as silent compasses, not promising quick fixes, but offering meaning. Today's search for meaning avoids intermediaries. More people want to understand for themselves, without being told what to think. This explains the growing interest in philosophy, depth psychology, practical spirituality, and self-knowledge. The pentagram resonates because it does not point outward, it points inward. Ito is not say follow, it asks observe. The symbol returns, because the essential question returns with it. Who governs my life? In a world saturated with noise, opinions, and distractions, that question is almost revolutionary. The pentagram offers no ready-made answers. It reflects the inner state of whoever contemplates it. And when someone recognizes themselves in a symbol, the next step is no longer theoretical. It becomes a choice. After understanding what the pentagram truly represents, the question stops being historical or symbolic and becomes practical. How balanced is your life today? Does your mind decide before impulse? Are your emotions acknowledged or suppressed? Do your actions reflect who you claim to be? Knowledge that is not applied becomes mere curiosity. And symbols like this were never meant to be admired, but lived. You don't need to change everything at once. Start by observing. Observe your habits, the information you consume, the conversations you feed, the choices you repeat automatically. Small conscious decisions reorganize internal hierarchy over time. And when that happens, life responds not by magic, but by coherence. The pentagram only points the path. Walking it is up to you. So tell me, who is governing your life today? Your values or your impulses? What would change if you assumed that command with clarity? If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and continue this journey of awareness with us. Here, knowledge is not meant to impress. It is meant to transform.